Hello, and welcome to the Artificial Podcast with your host, Nick Myers.
Artificial
intelligence,
voice recognition,
machine learning,
robotics,
actionable analytics.
It is Nick's goal to help everyone understand how AI and voice technology are reshaping our lives both personally and within organizations. Your glimpse into the growing world of AI and voice first starts now.
Nick Myers.
Nick Myers.
Nick Myers.
Welcome to the Artificial Podcast. My name is Nick Myers, and I am here to help break down topics in emerging technology, artificial intelligence, and voice to help everyone understand how these technologies are impacting our lives both personally and within our organizations. The Artificial Podcast is brought to you by Red Fox AI. Red Fox AI helps give brands a voice by leveraging the power of AI and voice assistant technologies like Alexa and Google Assistant. If you or your organization is interested in sponsoring an episode, please send an email to the Artificial Podcast at redfox-ai.com. If you like what you hear, please feel free to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can also follow the Artificial Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube by searching for the Artificial Podcast. Thank you for listening, and now on to this week's episode. Hey, Artificial Podcasters, welcome back to another week and another episode of the Artificial Podcast. My name is Nick Myers, and this week I am extremely excited to welcome Jeff Adams to the Artificial Podcast. And I had the opportunity to meet Jeff for the first time at the Project Voice conference that happened this past January, and we had a couple of really great discussions, and I got to learn more about Jeff and the amazing things that he's been able to work on, and then ultimately founding Cobalt Speech, which is his current endeavor. So before Jeff and I break into our amazing conversation here, let me tell you a bit about Jeff Adams. Jeff is a leading figure in the world of commercial speech technology. He has been managing top-level speech and language technology research for more than 20 years. Prior to founding Cobalt Speech, Jeff held roles at Kurzweil AI, Nuance Dragon, Yap, and Amazon. Jeff led the teams that developed the core technology for Dragon Naturally Speaking, Yap Voicemail, and Amazon Alexa. At Cobalt, Jeff has assembled a team of elite speech scientists and engineers to build custom applications to meet the needs of their clients. Jeff is the author of 25 patents and several published research papers and serves on the board of several companies. Jeff, welcome to the Artificial Podcast. How are you?
Nick, it is great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much again for taking the time to chat with me amidst all of the things happening in the world right now. And I think it's clear that as we kind of look at everything going on, particularly the healthcare space and some other areas, as we were just kind of chatting before we started recording here, I think voice and speech technology is really going to play a larger role in everything moving forward. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about some of that. But as we kind of kick things off here, I always like to learn from the incredible folks that I bring on the show. You know, what led you to get started working with artificial intelligence and speech technology that ultimately led you to work in extremely influential roles at companies like Nuance and Yap and Amazon?
Do you know what I wanted to be when I was a kid? When I was like in high school or junior high school, I wanted to grow up and be a secret code breaker.
I love it.
That was my goal. And looking back, I think the thing that fascinated me about that was it was sort of in the intersection of, on the one hand, language, which I love, and on the other hand, math and science and sort of geeky techie stuff, which I also loved. So I went to college, and in the back of my mind, this was my dream. But I began studying mathematics. And after a few years of studying mathematics, I saw that someone from the National Security Agency was coming to campus to interview co-op students, and I was
awesome.
I was a sophomore at the time, and I went and sort of barged my way in. They were looking for linguists, but I barged my way in. I said, I'm a mathematician. I want to break codes for a living. The guy said, we don't hire undergraduates for that. That's a pretty serious thing. And I said, give me a shot. And he ended up giving me a shot. So
Really?
I was hired by the NSA to
Oh my gosh.
be kind of an apprentice code breaker while I was an undergraduate, and spent a couple years doing that, and was just fascinated by that. And if I had been given the chance, I probably would have done that the rest of my life.
Wow.
A lot of people who started there at the same time are still there, or well, I'll give away my age. They're starting to retire now.
They're still at the NSA.
Yeah, exactly. And but I love that. I love the idea of taking something that looked like noise or randomness, and being able to pick out the language, be able to figure out how to turn that into meaningful language. I took a break for a couple of years to go get some more education. In the process, I got married, I moved, I was disrupted for 5 years, and during that time, this was in the late 80s, early 90s, the Cold War ended. And I went back and when I was done, I knocked on NSA's door and contacted my old friends there, and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, this is a really bad time. We're contracting. We're not hiring." And I said, "Well, what am I going to do? What else am I going to do that is like that?"
Right.
And I started looking around, and I realized that speech recognition was like, it called out to me. It said, "That's what you want to do." So. So I sent out some feelers and managed to get hired by Kurzweil AI, one of the early speech recognition companies back in the 90s, and was able to kind of retrain myself. And a lot of the things that I had learned applied. A lot of things were new, but it was very exciting, and I loved it. And it was still the same kind of thing, right? So where you're now looking at like an audio signal, and you're trying to pull the language out of it, trying to figure out what the information is that's in there. And anyway, I love that, and I felt like I had found my home, and have been doing that ever since, and just don't really want to do anything else. I'm excited about speech technology generally, not necessarily limited to speech recognition. There's a lot of other interesting stuff going on when we work with speech. But that's how I got into it.
Wow, that's such a cool story. I have to say, you are probably now the only person I've ever met in my life who actually worked at the NSA.
Well, maybe the only one who could tell you.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you were at the NSA, were you strictly just doing the code breaking type work then, or did they have you working on anything related to speech, or was it just strictly doing code breaking?
What's interesting, this was in the 80s, and speech was not really a thing yet. There were a few people at IBM Research that were starting to kind of develop the techniques for speech recognition. And there were some connections to NSA and the code breaking community, and that group. I didn't know anyone personally really well. I take that back. I knew one or two people who were involved, who were sort of working on looking at both of these things, and they helped make some introductions when I decided to get back into speech. But it does. There's a lot of overlap on the technology in terms of information theory and language modeling and so forth. So it was fun. It was a really good background, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. It was a great time there. I was there for nearly a decade.
Wow. I see. I'm just taking all that in because I'm like, that must have been such an incredible experience. And like you said, there probably was a lot of overlap without maybe even realizing it at the time you were at the NSA to, of course, everything that you have done since then, working at all these different speech recognition companies and now going on to found Cobalt. That's really cool, Jeff. So what has been the most fascinating aspect to you that you found so far of AI, voice assistant, speech technology, or both, that made you realize this is what you wanted to do for the rest of your life? I know you mentioned the code breaking aspect, but maybe looking beyond that, what really solidified you to where you were like, okay, it's speech technology for me. This is it forever?
First, I'll give you a very technical answer. The one technical area that is kind of most solidly in the overlap between code breaking and speech recognition is an area we call statistical language modeling, where you're trying to understand how words fit together, how letters and words and sentences and so forth fit together, and what word is likely to come after another word, things like that. That has, from the very first day I was introduced to that concept through today, I have been just fascinated by this idea of statistical language modeling.
Yeah.
And just trying to figure out how to characterize how words fit together, and what, the classic example is if you're reading a book or a newspaper article and you get to the end of a page and you're in the middle of a sentence, can you predict what the next word's going to be on the next page? And just trying to take everything into account of everything that you've read up to that point, and everything you know about the language, and everything you know about the world, and there's just so much information to take into that. So that's probably the technical area that has called out to me the most, that has made me feel like I just have a passion for this. But if I can go beyond the technical, the thing that really ignites my passion here is how it's a kind of a geeky, nerdy, techie subject, but it is also a very human subject. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
People communicating with each other, and I'm one of those unusual people who is kind of a techie nerd, and also socially very interested and outgoing, and so as you can tell, you can't get me to shut up here. So I just love the way the speech technology and human interaction and human computer interaction are all playing out. I think there's a long ways to go on that front. There's going to be a lot of progress made over the coming decades of how people will talk to computers, and how computers will enhance people talking with each other.
Absolutely. And I think, having been in this space just a couple years myself, of course, I think the biggest thing that stand out to me, what I found from a lot of people, yourself included, is that everybody kind of has a shared passion in the human aspect of this, because I think it's crucial when you look at a technology like this where you're completely changing an interface that has existed for decades, really, since computers have been around, and shifting that to the most natural form of human communication. The human outcome has to be focused on, right? So I really like that. That's one of the big things for you that motivates you and keeps you in this. That's really, and I get a bit geeky with the technical side of it too. So not too much in the whole statistical math side of it, but the AI part of it really fascinates me, and what keeps me going in this. So that's really neat. So
Yep.
Looking maybe a bit beyond that now into the work, of course, that you did at Amazon specifically with Alexa, how, after jumping from the NSA to Nuance and some of these other roles, how did you get recruited by Amazon to lead the team responsible for Alexa? And what was it like working on a technology that would go on to impact millions of people's lives really around the world?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, just to downplay my role a little bit, now the Alexa team is thousands of people big. But when I started, the Alexa speech team was maybe a dozen people. It was a small group but that also meant there was a lot riding on our shoulders that we were trying to figure out and chart the path forward. So how it came that I ended up there was that I had been the VP of research for a company called Yap Communications, and Yap had some pretty good, like amazingly good technology for speech recognition for a small company. And Amazon was looking to build Alexa, The Alexa project um, was not known within Amazon. That it was, there were, a handful of people that knew about it. It was this kind of big secret project.
Because it was built in that, they had it in that specific lab where all their innovation stuff comes out of, right? Forgive me, I can't remember the name of it right now.
So the hardware was done in what they call Lab 126.
Yep.
In Silicon Valley. The software parts of it were in Seattle.
Gotcha.
And that's where my team was centered. But Amazon acquired our company, Yap, and didn't. I mean, I've told this story a few times. I apologize if your readers are hearing it for the second or third time, but Amazon wouldn't tell us why they were acquiring us. And it was frustrating to no end.
Yeah.
That this big company wanted us, and they seemed to really want us, and they wouldn't tell us why. They wouldn't tell us what we were going to work on. And finally, after the deal was signed and we were all committed, even then it took them a week or two. They said, we've got to fly you all to Seattle.
Wow.
Flew us to Seattle, my team of, 12, 13 people, closed the door, locked the door, closed the windows.
Oh my gosh.
Word of it, you can't tell your families, you can't tell anyone what you're working on here. And they described their early vision of what the Amazon Echo might look like. Back in those days, they described it as looking like a Coke can, and costing maybe $10 or $20.
Yeah.
Over time, that morphed, of course, as it it became more important to get good quality speakers in and whatever. But they described the project to us, and that's when we realized what we were on the hook for. And I will tell you, it was unnerving, because they described it as if, okay, you know how to do speech, so now we want you to build this and we want to launch in 6 months or whatever. and
Oh
I
my
have
gosh.
to say, guys, I'm really sorry. I hope this isn't upsetting to you, but the technology just doesn't exist yet for what you're trying to do. And they said, well, that's okay. Hire more people. Take as long as you want. We are committed to seeing this through. And so we did. So I ended up hiring, 70, 80 people, something like that,
Wow.
to work on this over the years. And grew the team, and that was just focusing on the speech technology part.
Yeah.
There were, meanwhile, other teams focused on the software engineering for integrating with applications and skills, and other people looking at the hardware and whatever. There was a lot. There were a lot of other teams working on this, but my team focused on the speech recognition and the natural language understanding. We grew that to like 70, 80 people by the time I left, which was about when we launched. And we did some groundbreaking work. It was a really exciting, heady time to do some really important work in speech recognition. And I like I say, I wouldn't trade my time at NSA. I wouldn't trade my time at Amazon. That was an amazing time. I made a lot of friends. I learned a lot, and it's served me well in the rest of my career since then too.
I love the part of the story where you mentioned, yeah, guys, this technology just doesn't exist, and they're like, oh, okay, well, here's all the resources that we can give you in the world, and go create it, make it exist. I love that.
Yeah, and,
and it worked.
Yeah, and it did. And there aren't a lot of other companies that could have said that.
Right.
So things came together. I will say, on the technology side, if this had happened 5 years earlier, we might not have been able to do it.
Yeah.
It was the right people in the right place at the right company at the right time, that it was just a perfect storm, a good perfect storm, to make this happen. One of the key technical breakthroughs that made it possible had just happened outside of Amazon.
No
It
kidding.
happened a couple of years earlier, and that was the shift to deep learning or deep neural networks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think without those, we would, I think, not have been able to solve the problem, and at least not with not nearly in the same way that we did at Amazon.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, and then now I'm sure just from your position to see how this technology has grown and how it has become one of the core staples of Amazon as a company and just the devices that people, and I mean, gosh, Jeff, that's so cool.
yeah,
That's so
it
cool.
is super cool. I am so blessed that I was part of that story, and very glad for that.
That's amazing. So, given all this now, what do you find has been the greatest challenge that you had to face so far in your career working with these technologies, whether it was in Amazon, whether it was outside of Amazon, and how did you or have you been able to overcome that?
Uh, do you know, those are, I get asked that every once in a while, and there's not a clean answer to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a couple of answers that I don't know if you'll find them satisfying or not. But I'll tell you
I'll take anything.
Okay. But I will tell you, but I think these are real. I think these are the real answers. It just may not be the kind of answer you were looking for. So first of all, the biggest challenge in doing this kind of stuff is the human resource part of it. That is, it takes a certain kind of genius, and I'm not calling myself a genius. I mean the people that I hire. It takes a certain kind of genius to know and understand, have the insights for how to make these complex algorithms work for recognizing speech and understanding the meaning of it and so forth. This is an area where there are, the number of people who can do that are, I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 in the world or
That's
something like that.
crazy.
I mean, there's just not a lot of people who have that ability to like pierce through the problem you're trying to solve and get to an answer.
So there's a talent shortage basically then, and
Yeah, and it's not just that there's a shortage, like, oh, we need to motivate more people to go into it. It's like it takes a real a very hard set of skills to do that, and they don't grow on trees. They're hard to find.
No.
It used to be that people would say describe something really difficult as being like rocket science or like brain surgery. But I think those fields are easy compared to speech technology and deep learning and so forth. These are hard tasks to master.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one answer to what has been the hardest thing to overcome. It is simply finding people who really can work on it and make important contributions and breakthroughs. The other part of it is it's also on the human side. It's sort of we're limited by our imagination sometimes. We get into ruts and we think that where we are now, where the state of the technology is now, is where it's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll use myself as a bad example of this. When Amazon said, we want you to do this, and my answer was, oh, it can't be done. I kicked myself afterwards, and the answer I should have given was, yeah, we can do that. It's just, we're not there yet, and we can get there. But a lot of people, they get blinders on, sort of looking at the current state of technology. There are people out there who are building skills for Alexa or the equivalent for Samsung Bixby or Google Home or whatever, and it's really easy to kind of believe that is what voice technology is, and it's limited to the kinds of things you can implement as a skill for a smart speaker. But it goes so much more beyond that, and one of the challenges we have is thinking outside the box, thinking beyond the current state of the art.
No, those are, I would agree with you truthfully on both of those, because I even remember as I started working in this space a couple years ago, as I started to get to know people, I was being told left and right as well that just you look at voice as a whole, you look at speech technology as a whole. I mean, even when you consider AI, there is a only, like you said, when you look at the technology itself and the skill and the brain power that needs to go into that, it's a limited number of people. So I think that you're spot on with that, and I think that may be a challenge that we'll probably see for a couple of years, yet even longer than that, until I think more of this becomes a bit more mainstream and ubiquitous, and maybe people who are going to school for one computer science field finally decide to shift more into speech tech or something else. And then the second point as well, I think you're spot on too, because to the layperson, most people think, oh, speech technology is Alexa or Google Assistant or Bixby. Well, no, when you start pulling apart the layers, like you said, and you start looking at how the computer has to contextually understand language and the models that you have to build in order to do that, I mean, there's just so much complexity to it. So I think those are two very, very good examples. So maybe switching gears a bit now, why did you decide, after all of these different companies, of course, that you worked at over the years and the impact that you made, why did you decide to start Cobalt Speech? And maybe talk a bit about Cobalt Speech and, who or what industries are you seeking to help with the solutions that Cobalt provides?
Uh, Nick, that's a really good question, and I ask I ask myself that all the time. Why did I leave a good paying job and start a new company? Um, so all of the jobs that I had worked at until 5 years ago were, I was an employee.
Yeah.
I was in management, but I was an employee. And um, and after we launched Alexa in 2014, I I just I felt that I needed to do something. I need to go get out on my own. So one of the things that I realized when I was working for companies is that I'd be working for a company and there would be like one product we would be
Right.
focusing on, and I would be working on that one thing. So at Nuance, I was really working on dictation software. At Yap, I was really working on um, voicemail transcription. And at Amazon, I was really working on, this new field that we sort of invented, the smart speaker, the virtual assistant. But that meant that it was limited by that, and I realized, you could stay at one of those jobs forever,
Right.
but I blame it on my ADHD. Uh, I get restless after a while, and I want to
Yep.
do something different, and so um, I looked around while I was at Amazon, and here's a true story, that at Amazon, while we were there, when it finally came out, we kept it secret within the company for a long time that what we were doing, and even before we launched, it was secret, but people started to learn that there was this speech team in Amazon, and other parts of the company started coming to me, and like the warehouse robot guys would come to me and say, "Hey, can you put speech in our robots?" And the customer service guys would say, "Hey, can you help us analyze the conversations that our agents are having with
Yeah.
customers?" And the well, whatever. I actually shouldn't give away a lot of the details of some of the others, but a lot of people from around Amazon would come to us and say, "Hey, can you help us with this and that and the other?" And we had to say, "No, we've got our own project we're working on, and we can't even tell you what it is,
Yeah.
but it's going to be big, and so we don't have time for you." And I just kept thinking, why isn't there someone out there who can help companies build whatever it is that they're trying to build. There were companies out there that would offer, focused solutions for this, that, or the other. But what was missing was a company that would just offer um, general expertise in speech and language technology to build whatever you wanted to build. So that, a company like Amazon could, instead of creating its own new speech team from the ground up. They could just come and hire a
Right.
company to come in and be consultants and augment their workforce and build the thing that they're looking for. And that's the vision I had for Cobalt. As I said, I want to be the speech research group for 100 companies that can all come to us, and we will be able to develop whatever we need for anyone, for all comers. And that's largely, well, that's what we have done now at Cobalt over the last 5.5 years, I guess. It's been great. So people routinely come to us and ask us to do things that I had never thought about as even a product. And so it's cool. So we get to invent new things and push speech technology in all sorts of different directions. In the process, we have developed our own very solid, state-of-the-art, best in class speech recognition and speech synthesis and chatbot AI kinds of technology and whatever else. But then we're also doing other things of analyzing the nature of your speech and giving you feedback on your, how confident are you sounding, or how fluent are you in this? Maybe you're learning a new language. We give you feedback on that. I don't mean to say we do that. Our customers would do that, but we develop the technology behind that. And so it's been really cool to work on, 100 different projects over the last 5 or 6 years that are just all over the map, that are exciting, that are fun, and we've got at Cobalt now we've got one of the leading speech teams in the world. We've got a smallish company, but it's like 20 speech experts, which is
right. Like unheard of.
Yeah. Amazon has more than that, but not a lot of other companies have more than that.
Right.
And so we're able to do really cool stuff. Anyway,
that's awesome. And
I rambled a little bit there. I know. I'm sorry.
No, that's really cool, because to your point, where just when you think, oh, voice wouldn't make sense maybe for something like this, somebody probably approaches you and is like, hey, can we do this? And then you get to push the envelope and actually, invent or figure out if it actually can be done. And that's the fun part. I agree with you. That's kind of the fun for me too. This whole thing too is figuring out where this can apply, because just there's so many different problems that it can solve. And especially in the case of what you guys have done at Cobalt, is you have your own speech engine as well to help solve these problems with, which is really nifty and cool. And I know you and I have kind of talked a bit about that too, and it's very neat. So no, that's amazing that you've kind of, taken your collective years of experience and knowledge and everything that you've done and turn that into what you've done for Cobalt. That's really cool. So what are some of the best resources that you have used personally to help you continuously learn about AI and speech technology, both on the technical and the strategy side?
Well, again, I don't know if you're going to like my answer. But the truth is that I learn more from talking with smart people than I do from reading, and so for me, it's my learning doesn't come so much from reading articles or things that are shared online. It comes much more books. It comes much more from my having regular conversations with either the smart people that I've hired at Cobalt, who keep teaching me about what's next and what's on the horizon, or the partners and customers and friends that I have throughout the industry that I stay in touch with. And we meet up at conferences and so forth. And first thing I want to know is, okay, what's new? What do you see that's exciting? And I try to stay on top of it that way.
No, I think that's an excellent answer, and I would be hard pressed if a lot of people didn't. Hard pressed to find anybody who didn't. A lot of people who didn't do that, just because I'm the same way. I mean, gosh, Jeff, I've learned a ton just from talking to you in the past 30 minutes here. So it really is about finding people who are really good at their craft and then learning from them and then applying that to your own, devices of whatever you're doing. So no, I think that's an excellent answer. And to anybody listening, me personally as well, if just, one of the best places, truthfully, if you go onto Twitter, follow the Voice First hashtag, there are so many amazing people to talk to, and then, reach out, get connections to Jeff's point, just, find really good people who are willing to help you learn. And that's really one of the best ways, I think, to get a solid angle of what this is all about and keep on top of all of it, because it's changing so quickly. So no, I think that's an excellent answer. So from your position as well, what has it been like to witness the evolution of natural language processing and natural language understanding, and how advanced do you think they'll become over the next decade?
It's really kind of cool to be in this field, because honestly, like most of us, our day-to-day work, we're just like doing our job. We're,
Yeah.
talking to people. For me, it's a lot of talking to customers, figuring out what they want, organizing within the company how we're going to get it done, or so forth. And then I step back and I look at it, after a year or two or 10, and I say, oh wow, look what we built. So I mean, it really it's really a lot of fun to like when I go to visit a friend and they have an Amazon Alexa device there in their home, and I just kind of smile, saying, "Hey, I helped build that."
Yes, I know, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But I wasn't thinking of that at the time. It was, at
Right.
the time I was just doing my job. We were just, working on exciting stuff and excited to make the progress. And now you look back and you see where we've come, and it's been such an honor to be part of that whole experience with so many other talented people. You asked, where do I think this can go?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I see, you see dystopian movies or read books or whatever, and you think, are we heading in that direction? Am I guilty of that? In my first couple of years in speech, this would have been 22, 23 years ago. An academic came in to visit our offices of our speech company.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to talk to us, and he was 100% certain that within 10 years, what we were doing was going to make it so that nobody knew how to read or write anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Everything would become, voice based.
Yeah.
That, there would be no reason to read anything. There wouldn't be signs anymore. And he thought this was going to happen, very rapidly within 10 or 15 years. And, I look back and I can laugh about it now, but at the time I thought, am I contributing to something like that? Because people stop being literate? I have to ask myself that still. Am I contributing to something that's gonna have some negative consequences? But so far I don't see that. So far I see, this the technology that we're developing is helping people. The technology that I contributed to at Dragon for dictating documents is helping people write books and write their family histories and do things that they just might not have been able to do otherwise.
Right. Well, and doctors use Dragon to dictate too, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the technology that I built at Amazon with smart speakers, you could say it's going to make people lazy so that they just talk to their smart speaker, but I don't see that. I see it as my parents who are in their 80s, and they love that. They depend on their Echo to give them updates and get information and so forth. And I see people who use these things, this technology, to stay in touch with their loved ones, especially during, like, in this quarantine time that we've got on right now with the coronavirus. People are using speech technology to reach out and stay in touch with other people, or whatever. I see, so far everything I've seen is pointing not toward a dystopian future, but more of a utopian future. That is, we're gonna uh, we're gonna enable people to get more done, have more meaningful relationships, have uh, uh, more productivity in what they're doing, and so forth. So I'm an optimist, and I think that this is going to go great places. In terms of actually telling you what the future looks like, um, I um, the baseball player Yogi Berra, who said a lot of interesting and funny, sometimes unintentional funny things. He's quoted as having said, um, "Making predictions is hard, especially about the future."
It's true.
Yeah, and I think it's actually the case that making predictions is impossible. I don't think any of us can see beyond a year or two.
Oh no, I mean, if you look at a year ago, who could have predicted that the entire world would be in a lockdown now over a new disease that nobody would have thought about that. Well, maybe a couple of people, but for most of the world, no, nobody would have ever predicted that.
That's right. And this lockdown, this quarantine is now influencing the world in a lot of ways that are
Oh yeah.
not just temporary, right? That we're going to come out of this and we're going to be better, but we will have changed in the process. And I can't even tell you how that's going to, what exactly that means, but we'll be living in a different world a year or two from now.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's hard to know how that's going to contribute, how voice is going to be a part of that, but I think it will be a part of that.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I'm with you. I'm an optimist as well in this whole thing because I think all of the examples you brought up about how people have been using the technology over the last couple of years, even longer than that, there really isn't any super nefarious things. And I know arguments, of course, can be made about, you and I, I'm sure, have gotten our fair share of the privacy discussion and all that stuff, but I think that'll clear up with time, and it will be done right. But I think if we look at the scope of speech technology and voice, there is no really nefarious actors that I can think of off the top of my head, and I hope that doesn't come into the picture. And I don't think it will. I'm with you. I'm an optimist, and I think we're not going to be living in a world run by HAL 9000s. We'll be living in a world run by, well, I'm trying to think of a really positive AI. One of them's out there in the movies. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a lot of good is going to come out of this, and only more good, I think, as things change here in post pandemic life as well. So kind of wrapping up as we have had this amazing discussion, I have two more quick questions for you here. What tips or pieces of advice can you share for startups or anyone seeking to start a business in the voice or speech technology industry in 2020 amidst everything that's going on and even beyond?
Oh my. I Make sure you know what you're doing. I think that's a universal.
Yes, that's a good one to start off with.
So, but I mean specifically, make sure you know the landscape. Make sure you know the other players. Make sure you're going to conferences and events where all of this is discussed. But just be informed. Be informed about the technology, where it's going, what's possible, and that's an ounce of information is worth a pound of correction after the fact.
Absolutely, I agree. I think some people I've talked to are just even us, I could say at this point, we're still definitely in startup mode. And I would, from experience, say if you don't know what's going on, and if you're not making connections and you're not a part of the community and you're not absorbing information, to your point about an ounce of knowledge is worth a pound of success. Truthfully, sorry if I screwed up that analogy there, but
it works either way.
You need to be informed, and especially right now with everything going on and things changing so quickly, it's crucial. So I think that's an excellent piece of advice. And some of the greatest companies have risen out of trying times, right? I mean, we look at the past 20 years, some companies that rose out of the 2008 financial crisis, companies that rose out of the dot-com bubble or the dot-com bust. I mean, there's the opportunities there. You just have to be knowledgeable and know when to go for it, I think.
Yep, I agree with you there 100%.
So then lastly here, I always love closing on this question because I love the different responses that folks who come on the show give. But what is one thing that you think someone can do today to begin leveraging AI or speech technology, either personally or within their organization?
What I tell my employees is we need to eat the dog food. That we need to use our own technology, and I don't mean just our own technology, but we've got to use the technology. I'm surprised at how many people are in the speech or voice industry who don't routinely use it for dictating messages, talking to virtual assistants, or whatever. I think we need to use it because that is what informs us individually as to where the pitfalls are, where the opportunities are, and so forth. So I think my biggest piece of advice is just embrace the technology, use it when you can, and then as a secondary asterisk to that, find people to talk to about it. That people are. If someone's got an idea for speech, I'm always happy to talk to them about it because I love talking about cool ideas, and I'm sure you would, and many others would.
Yep.
Reach out and talk to people about your ideas, and try to get an unvarnished look at what the opportunities and pitfalls are.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice because I'll even admit, even just the few limited years I've been in this, I feel like I am discovering something new by using my Google Home devices or using my Alexa devices every day. I swear, there's like a new feature coming out all the time. I remember the moment that I heard they were going to have Samuel Jackson's voice be the voice of Alexa, and you could buy that for $1. I was on that day when it came out. It was one of the best things I've ever done. So yeah, I think you're right on, Jeff, that if you're in this space or even if you're not in this space, because this technology is going to become so ubiquitous, just play with it, mess with it. And I think, maybe also throughout the pandemic here and afterwards, we're maybe going to start seeing people using their voice assistants for more than just weather, music, some of that basic stuff, because I think people are almost kind of being forced to, and that behavior shift is happening. So no, I think that is excellent advice to close on. But Jeff, this has been an amazing discussion. I'm again so grateful and thankful that you're able to share your time and insights with me and all the listeners on the show. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you, what are some of the best ways for them to go about doing so?
You can always go to our website, cobaltspeech.com. You can send an email to info@cobaltspeech.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We try not to make it hard to reach out to us, so happy to hear from anyone.
Fantastic. Well, Jeff, thank you so much again. It's been an absolute pleasure, and stay safe, still healthy, and hopefully this pandemic doesn't go on too much longer.
we can hope. Nick, thank you so much. It's been a real joy for me to talk to you today.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Artificial intelligence, voice recognition,
Machine learning.
robotics.
You've been listening to the Artificial Podcast with your host, Nick Myers. To stay up to date with all our latest episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. To learn more about how your organization can benefit by unlocking the power of AI and voice, visit www.redfox-ai.com. Until next time.